Hey everyone, it's Coach Dave March here, and I'm here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. This one is going to be very interesting. We're going to be announcing some new changes that I'm having. We're going to bring on a great new guest, and we have some great news for you in store here. And if it's your first time here into this podcast, I wrote a book called Vision and Action, and what we talk about is bringing people's visions into action, if it's their ideal career or if it's their ideal business. And today's guest, we have Mike Conti. Mike Conti is the founder and CEO of AcceleraRev. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to the people here?
Great. Thanks, Dave. Yep, Mike Conti, as Dave said, I'm the founder of AcceleraRev, which I founded a little over a year ago, basically to help businesses grow, especially early stage companies. I've spent most of my career in early stage companies, building them primarily from scratch, taking companies from zero to 20 million, 30 million in revenue to an IPO to successful exits. I've taken them from 10 or 20 million to 80, 90 million in all different technology sectors. So I've done 6 startups in 5 different sectors. I also spent a long period, well, not that long, but 6 years at Oracle, where I ran a team and took them from a $20 million business unit to a $60 million business unit. Spent some time at HPE, where I combined 3 strategic regions into one. Basically, if you did $100 million worth of business with HPE hardware, you were in my organization for HPE software. That's a lot of the background. What inspired me was through all the years of building successful teams, I noticed that great salespeople do things differently and they do things a certain way. And every manager I knew, including me, could never get it out of them. Like, what is it you guys do that's so different? And so I decided to start to look, watch, study them to see if there were patterns, to see if there were things that I could see that they were doing. Because most of these guys and gals weren't unwilling to explain it to me. They couldn't explain it to me. And the reason, as I learned, was that what they were doing was intuitive. It wasn't something they were consciously thinking of. But one thing I noticed about all of them, they hated the CRM and they were never the ones that followed the path that management had laid out for them. And so I really started to look at that. Why? What is it they're doing? How are they doing it? Why are they so successful? And why don't they do what we tell them? And so what I learned was they were not necessarily not doing what we told them. They were not doing it the way we told them. And specifically what they were doing was they were taking our sales process, adding to it other things that were effective, and then they were aligning it to where the buyer was in their process, in their decision process. And they were doing it intuitively. They were doing it instinctually. And so I saw this pattern over multiple companies, multiple salespeople. And so I decided to document it so that I could take what they were doing and get my whole team to understand it and follow it. And that's what I did. And I built what I call the buyer aligned sales execution framework. And so what that does is it takes the buyer's process, which is really kind of the salesperson's job, right? Get them aware of us, get them curious and interested about us, get them desiresome to make a change or consider a change, convince them that we're the right solution to solve their problem, and close them. That is what the buyer does and goes through in a process. And that's not even my process. Dale Carnegie documented us for that probably 40 years ago now, right? But that's the process they follow. And then what they do is they take the sales activities we enable for them and they align them to where those customers are in that process. And then they take the resources they have and they understand whether or not they're enabled to execute that process or not, right? That action or not. And in that way, they are most productive because they know what to do next, when to do it, and what to do it with. And so the net is you have salespeople who take the next best action to move a deal forward at the right time with the right resource. By definition, productivity goes up and cost of sale goes down. And so that was kind of how my passion started. And now I've basically built a company around that to teach other salespeople, other companies how to do this, especially early stage companies, because early stage companies have a lot of things they do that end up getting them in trouble. Not because they're not awesome at what they do, but simply because everything that a founder would think about how to go to market is counterintuitive to what is really needed to go to market, right?
Mhm.
So I document all that and I help buyers or founders, I'm sorry, understand what these issues are, and I help them get to market faster, ramp their sales organizations quicker at a heck of a lot less cash burn so that they get to retain the majority of the equity in their companies.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot that you do. You do a lot. One of the things that you were saying there I think is really interesting, and there's probably other sales trainers and things out there that talked about this, but there's like period of learning where it's like unconsciously competent, consciously competent, and there's like three stages.
Yes,
And so what happens is I think for the people that were doing it intuitively, they were unconsciously competent.
that's right.
And so you bring them through those different stages. What are those stages?
Sure. So, in terms of getting them to think about how to sell and make a lot of money and be successful, I take them through three real fundamental disciplines. The first one is planning, right? I teach them, look, you got to plan out how you run your business because immutable sales rule number one, salespeople who spend more of their time with people that are more likely to buy sell more, right? So, you need to start by understanding how to do that. And I teach them, look, don't start by setting goals and objectives because you have no idea whether they're realistic. You don't know whether your quote is realistic. You don't know what number you can do. Start by looking at your territory and do an analysis that allows you to understand the facts about where your best opportunities are. When you understand your best opportunities, the next thing you do is define strategies to exploit those opportunities, right? Then you put plans and activities in place to execute those strategies. Once you know where your best opportunities are, what strategies to execute, what resources you have to execute them, you can now set realistic goals and objectives. And almost always when I've done that with salespeople, they set objectives much higher than their quotas because they figure out, oh my God, this quota is not so bad. In fact, if I follow this plan, I can't see how I can't make my numbers, right? So that's the first thing I teach them. The second thing I do is I say, look, you've got to sell the way buyers buy. And so I teach them the buyer aligned framework. I teach them, look, here's stage one, create awareness. Stage two, create curiosity and interest. Stage three, create the ability for the client to want to evaluate your technology or your solution, convince them it's the correct solution, and then close them. Those are the stages. And then I teach them, look, think about your pipeline, not in terms of dollars or size. Think about it in terms of where are the prospects in those stages. The ones you're going to work are the ones that you can move, right? And so I teach them that. And then I teach them, look, what are the actions you're going to take in each, like, get your mind thinking, okay, the prospect is here. These are the 6 things I could do to move them to the next stage, right? I'm going to do A, and if A works, great. But if A doesn't work, I got 5 more choices. If I'm sitting there following a linear sales process that says, lead gen, lead qual, interest, presentation, demo, close, I got one action I can take, right? And usually my sales process forces me to take that action at the wrong time, right? Like, hey, let's get our SDRs to call up people and get a demo. These people aren't even interested yet, but we're going to give them like they're all misaligned, right? So I teach them sort of how to understand that. And then the final thing I teach them is, look, here's how you do a deal review, right? I don't teach Medic the way Medic teaches it because it's got more holes in it than a Swiss cheese, right? Like
Mhm.
you qualify accounts not based on what people tell you. You use more their actions. You have to understand, the organization you're selling to. I start them off with an org chart and have them develop that org chart in terms of where the people are in the organization they're dealing with. And then I'm looking for the following. Look, here's what they're telling you. Are their actions consistent with what they're telling you, right? Like if I wanted to buy a house, right, I'd go up to the realtor. Hey, I want to buy this house. It's really cool. Yeah, I have the money. Blah blah blah, right? And a realtor might take that as fact. Say, I got a prospect. A smart realtor will say, hey, Mike, let's run your credit. Why don't you give me your financials? And we'll get started on seeing if you can get the mortgage for this house. If I push back, if I don't do it, how serious am I about buying that house? My actions
Essentially, what you're saying is people get too excited too quickly.
much, yeah. They have happy meals.
That's essentially what you're saying because
Yes,
what happens is they're like, "Oh, this guy's interested." They essentially jump into conclusions without having all the information. Essentially, what's
correct.
happening.
That's absolutely right. And that's where my methodology for deal review does not let that happen. And the
Mhm.
results are amazing because when you invest in an account, once a customer says, yeah, we're serious and we want to move through an evaluation, right? That's 80% of your effort in a sales process. We close over 90% of those opportunities. People who use this method have forecast accuracy in the mid 90s, right? Because they're basing their strategy on fact. When I get a typical, person that hasn't been through this before, so what's your strategy to win? You know what I get? I get a close plan. That's a close plan. Those are the things you're going to do to close the deal.
Yeah,
If you have the
yeah,
right strategy. What's your strategy? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? They say to me, I said, look, how is the organization aligned politically, financially, and behaviorally to what you're doing? Because if they're not, you're not going to close the deal. Right. And so that whole process is not that difficult, right? Typically I spend 45 minutes in a deal review. When I get done with one, the salesperson knows exactly what they have to do next, what they need to go qualify in order to make sure that they're spending their time and their resources toward a close.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, 100%. There's a lot to be said about that. I think that the most important thing is um the like prevailing wisdom now, even if you call it wisdom, I don't know if I've called wisdom, is just get on the discovery call the first thing you do. Let's get someone on a discovery call, let's get someone on a demo, let's get someone, let me show them what they got. And they're just gonna see what they got, they're gonna love it, they're gonna buy, it's all gonna be over. That's it. That's all I need to do. I just need to get them on the
That's it.
phone, just message them, get them on the phone. Get them on the phone. You sell them right there in the first call. Never have to talk to them again. Everything is done. Everything is easy. One call close, done.
Yeah.
I
No.
mean, I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong.
Well, you're absolutely right, Dave. It's worse than wrong. Okay. That kills more pipeline creation than you can imagine. Because when you sell something, what do you have to do? You have to get someone curious and interested. Okay. So I have a problem and you have a product to sell me. Okay, great. So you get me on the phone, you tell me you have a great product, you solve my problem, and you give me a demo. First of all, you probably solved the problem that I have differently than I think about the problem, right? So the odds of me deducing the problem you solve from looking at a demo, the way you solve it is probably close to zero. What I'm going to be doing is doing what? How does that work with like what I do? And people go, I don't know. So what have you done? You've shown them the product so they're not curious anymore. And they've seen something they don't like, so they're not interested anymore. Great. Why would you do that? But that's what people do. It's a much bigger issue today, especially since AI's come into the world, right? Because most companies are using email, outreach, sales loft, Gong, Zoom recordings. I mean, they're using these tools that are really almost rendered useless by AI. And the companies that are selling, right, the tech companies especially, they think we got the AI. I mean, we're generating our own AI emails, we're generating personalization, we're doing this and that. Yeah, and you know what's happening? Your qualified pipeline is getting smaller and smaller. Why? Because the AI that the companies use against you is crushing you, right? But you don't know that typically, right? And so when I talk about the buyer aligned sales cycle these days, I talk about how you use AI in each one of those stages so that you could actually be effective to build quality pipeline. What's happening now is people are just adding more BS to that pipeline just to keep the numbers big, but the quality of it is getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want to break down this buyer line sales process in two pieces because there is like a marketing kind of piece in the beginning, and then you go to more of the sales piece. And as far as like marketing goes, the marketing principles and everything that we're talking about in this first part can be used for a person looking to make a career transition from one company to another company, but also a person that's looking to grow their business and revenue to get
Yeah.
more clients and everything. Because principles are the same, marketing principles are the same. Most people, I don't think, look at such a thing, such a big picture. I tend to look at things from a really wide view, big picture. And because I can see it from a really bigger picture, I could zoom out a lot. Again, a lot of people are really zoomed in. They don't see how these things apply. I've said in some of the articles I've made before, it's like, in today's job market, you got to be like the salesman of your career. It's not just like, I'm just going to send out 1,000 resumes and yeah, something's going to work. It's like you have to apply really the same principles of marketing a business to your candidacy when you're
Right.
trying to get a position. So let's talk about that piece of it.
So, like, when I do work for clients or when I had done, you know, work for companies that I worked for, I hired the people. I had hired a lot of people. And today they have no shot at even getting in front of me, right? Especially if I work for a company. Well, my internal recruiter is got all the resumes, right? Okay, great. Why is he getting those applications on LinkedIn? Not because he thinks most of those people are qualified. He just wants a name in the database so he doesn't have to pay an external recruiter because he already has a name, right? So like people are applying through LinkedIn with, application. It's a total waste of time. And most people will tell you we get next to no response. Yeah, but that's right. Because guess what? They're really hiring people either from their network, people they know, people that have been referred to them, right? So like forget about that route. The other piece of it is AI has taken over, man. I mean, if you're not producing video, if you're not getting emails in front of a hiring manager and you're not applying in a way with that email that goes directly to the things that hiring manager most cares about, and then you're not supporting that with digital presence, you're not going to get, you're not even getting an interview,
Oh, yeah,
right?
toast,
Yeah, you're toast.
burn
I mean,
toast.
you're done. So most candidates, like most companies that are selling products, they don't know how to do this. All right. I mean, look, spam filters alone, right? Because, oh, well, I got out through the spam filter because, I use a different alias email. Yeah, okay. Good luck with that. First of all, you have to realize that the first thing you need is to be found. And to be found, you have to get you have to get something in front of a person that's going to make them look for you.
Yeah, make
Okay,
them look
so
for
if you
you.
send them an email today, guess what? Number one, chances are if you sent multiples out or you send email, they're gonna identify it as spam. Okay. Well, let's say you're smart enough to figure out how to get an email infrastructure that protects the integrity of your email. Let's say you do that.
You go to the primary inbox, it's not going to spam.
Right. Let's say you figure out how to do that, which is
Mhm.
not a simple process. You have to know how to do that.
People spend billions of dollars on, preventing spam. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody wants to, so there's a whole sequence of things you need to do to get your email deliverability correct and to get
exactly.
it into the primary inbox so that people actually see it. So once the people actually see your email and they see, okay, it's from Mike Conti, what's the next question they're going to say?
Say, well, do I know this guy? I mean,
Who's
why
this
am I?
guy?
Who is this guy, right? And so the spam filters are looking at the damn email and they're looking for personalization, not just, I know your name and your title, right? They're looking for keywords, the key phrases, things that would indicate that I know this person, right? So you have to have today layered personalization. It's not just name and title. So the first thing you got to do is get through the spam filter. So the spam filter doesn't decide you don't know this guy, you don't want to talk to him, right? So then once you do that and you're now in they click because it's in their inbox, there better be something in the subject line that makes them curious, right? And what has to be there is a question. Why does that have to be a question? It has to be a question because people have now been retrained to think about what they need in terms of questions. Why? Because they ask the AI. So you better understand what are the 2 or 3 key things this hiring manager is looking for, and then form your email in the form of a question like, are you struggling with this? Do you need this? Right?
And it has to be
Because
relevant. It has to be
yeah,
relevant, right? So,
right.
and there's a lot of signals, there's a lot of the different things we can tell, and you can get intent data as to what's relevant to them.
That's
But look, let's say they go through all these things. The next step is what we're talking about, personal branding, in the sense of who is this person? Let me learn more about them. Well, then you go on the internet. That's why you have the video. That's why you have the articles. That's why you have a start leadership stuff, because they want
yeah,
to learn more about you. And it's the same exact thing with a resume. If you're sending out a resume to this person, they're going to be like, okay, got the resume. Who are they? Is there any information online about them? And the same ideas are revolving around, should I hire this person for my company as an employee, are the same ideas that are going to revolve around, should I hire this person to solve my problem for my company as a
right,
consultant, as a business owner, as B2B. So there has to be some way to find out who this person is.
right. That's it, right. So, you think about just the number of resumes that get sent out, right? How many of them are being sent out with a video link so that the hiring manager can click on the link and go, I got a face, I got a name, I am learning a little bit about the person. And then when they go to LinkedIn or social media, what they're saying, what's in their personal brand is very consistent with what I just saw in the video. And here's the biggest thing of all, Dave. If you're hiring salespeople and the hiring manager is saying to himself, listen, if you can't even figure out how to get in front of me, how on God's earth are you going to figure out how to get in front of a prospect?
It's
Okay.
true.
Like, it's not
Yeah,
happening, right?
it's true.
So your entire way you look for just if you look for a job the right way, you have a much higher chance of being hired simply because the way you have to look for a job is how you have to go to market to get the attention of your prospect. If you
Yeah,
got my attention, chances are you're going to get the attention of the people I want you to get in front of. And if you didn't,
yeah.
like, right,
Yeah.
that's a,
Yeah, 100%.
yep,
100%. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to create the curiosity around like who this person is. You have to have the direct email to the hiring manager. And what I always like to say, as you know, we talk about the applicant tracking system and ATS and everything, is you can't really build a relationship with an applicant tracking system,
no,
right?
you can't.
You can't. So it's like you're sending all these resumes, like what you'd do better to send all these that spend the same time on emails, because even if the email is read, or even if the email there's no response, you can send another email, and you can
Yeah.
send another email, and that could slowly build a relationship with this person, and they could be researching you after every email that's being sent. And what's
Mm.
not happening is that's not happening with an applicant tracking system.
No,
Like,
it's not.
you're just not building a relationship with that.
No, you're
So
not. You're not. And that's a huge key. I mean, the recruiting job also has changed. So if you think about it, you're now trying to go to a hiring manager, but you still need recruitment help. And what you need really is someone that can help match what you do with the requirements that the job poster or job seeker, the person who's trying to hire people has, right? And that AI can help there too with it AI matching, right? Where you're trying to figure out, okay, I have a candidate. I want to get that candidate in front of the hiring manager, but I need to know what that hiring manager is looking for and how well that candidate matches. And I need to do it all digitally, right? Because if I don't do it digitally, I mean, my God, you'll apply to tons of jobs and get none, right? So I think it's a pretty complex process now. I don't wanna say it's complex. People don't know how to do it is really what it comes to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, and people aren't really taught how to like do job search correctly.
Mm, right.
I mean, that's just they're just not taught on that, and the way things are happening now, it's really again, it's not just about setting an application, and it's really marketing yourself. Like your resume is a marketing document,
Yep.
first of all, and your video resume is a even better marketing document. And then, you know, what marketing are you do to market your candidacy? And one thing my friend told me, and I like to bring up from time to time, you know, there's this idea also about I don't want to bother them. I don't want to send them all these emails. I don't want to bother these people. I don't,
Mhm.
you know, I don't want to do that. Like you someone email a hiring manager, it's gonna piss them off. It's like, you know what? How many times have you seen a McDonald's commercial? They're not stopping.
No.
Subway,
Well,
Burger
my
King, they're sending in ads every single day, 24/7. And McDonald's isn't even not that good food. I mean,
can
it's
you ima
like
can
you're
you ima
you're actually you
yeah.
all you're doing is putting yourself out there, taking your shots.
If I'm a hiring manager, right, and you think about the candidate who thinks that, "I don't wanna bother people." Okay, I'm hiring you to get in front of people, and you're gonna say, "Well, I don't wanna bother them." Do you really think I'm gonna hire you? Like, stop, right? It's ridiculous. Of course, you have to get in front of people. If you don't wanna bother them, then do it in an effective way that gets them value, that brings them value. Look, they don't wanna read a resume. They want to click on a link and know something about you. All right. They don't want to have to call 9,000 people. They want to look and see if what you're saying in your video is consistent with your brand on social. And if it is, you just pass like 9 hurdles. They're going to talk to you. All
Mhm,
right. If they got more work to do on reference checks, they'll do it later.
mhm.
But like, you got to get to first base.
But people have to be aware of you. So that's kind of the first stage there. It's the awareness. It's the
Yes.
marketing awareness. And it's the same thing. What I've noticed is, look, you know, a go-to market strategy is a go-to market strategy. If you're trying to bring a candidate to the job market, the go-to market strategy there is still a more go-to-market strategy. If you're trying to bring an entrepreneur and his business idea to the marketplace, it's a go-to-market strategy. So again, I think that a lot of times people don't see this big picture. It's you have
Right.
to zoom out a little bit, but we're doing really the same kind of thing,
Yes,
bringing
we are.
stuff in the market.
Well, it's even more important in the B2B world, right? And here's why it is. And whether it's an entrepreneur with a new idea or a company trying to sell even a reasonably established product, here's why it's so much worse. They have incumbent technologies,
Hmm.
right, that have been rendered, like I said earlier, almost useless. Here's why. So remember, people used to be fighting over, how do we get the best keywords so we're found on the Google search before the competitors, right? That's done, and then I hear, well, SEO is dead, search engine optimization is dead. It's kind of not dead, but you have to optimize for the AI. You have to be found. So now let's start to think about that. Okay, I've got outreach products that do email. I've got intent products that tell me intent. I've got sales, lead tracking and qualification software. That's all great. But guess what? If I just took a outreach sequence and ran it you know, in its entirety, by the time I got to the end of it, I'd probably be in single digit percentages of inboxes, if that, right? Because the filters are going to crush you, right? So, how do I bring a product how do I create leads now, right? Well, the
Hmm.
first thing you have to do is recognize the fact that you have a problem. And there's 4 real or 5 real disciplines you have to understand. You have to understand deliverability, right? You have to understand personalization. You have to understand what the content needs to be to get the person curious. You have to understand how AI is
The
going to
offer. I
respond.
mean, what the content needs to be, if you're curious, is the offer essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you have to understand how to market digitally, which means you have to train your lead gen people, your SDRs, in how to behave a bit differently than they behave now, right? If you do those things, you'll get leads. Okay.
Mhm.
But most companies have not only don't they know how to do those things, they're not even equipped to do those things. So, for example, how okay, so I'm out there, I managed to get into, but how am I gonna be found? Oh, well, they're gonna go to our website. No, they're not. They're gonna go to AI and ask the AI about w what they're curious about from your email or your reach out, right? Okay, and AI is then gonna go out and look for information about you and your competitors. And guess what? Where are they going to look? They're going to look on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. They're going to look across all the social media platforms and all the sources, right? Where are you? If you're not on the right sources, you're not being found.
Yep.
And if your message is like everybody else's, you're not being cited. So you have to have presence on the right platforms, even if your prospects aren't there. The AI is. And you have to have the right content so that they AI adds you to whatever it comes back with in terms of findings, right? So, does the average company have technology that can generate, campaigns, web pages, like there's a whole bunch of digital media that has to be produced. And
Mhm.
even if they do, how fast can they get it up on their servers, right? So one of the things that's critical to lead gen and really the entire buyer line sales cycle is an AI stack. And it's not the AI stack you hear about all the time. It's tools that help make what you already have far more effective than it is today, right? And those tools are not that expensive. These guys are spending millions on marketing people, marketing campaigns, SDRs, tools, and they're getting less and less for it.
Yeah.
Not to spend a few $1,000s on an AI stack that makes all of that,
Oh, yeah. Well,
useful and productive
that's what's
again.
really crazy nowadays, really. If you start to think about what's going on here, I foresee the small business owners, really growing leaps and bounds because what do you think about the small business owner? You typically think of wearing so many different hats. Well, what if there was an AI that did the job of five people? So, it makes a small business that has maybe three people, five people, very able to do all the work because each one of those people can wear five hats
Right.
easily. Before it was like to do 10 different things and I'm just one person. How can I do this? Well, with the right AI stacks, the right automations, the right marketing infrastructure architected in a way that creates efficiencies, well, now we have one person that could do five, maybe the work of 10 people, but because of the infrastructure, it's not a problem. It's a
Right.
system. You got to create the systems in order for that to be efficient
That's
for you.
that's exactly right. You're trying to execute a process, right? And that system you're talking about is the process that you're needing to automate with AI. I call it the execution architecture. And so I think that every business, whether they're trying to market or whether they're a candidate looking for a job, they need an execution architect that understands the fundamentals of these disciplines, knows how to build a stack to automate the process to make the impact they're trying to have effective because it's not anymore. What they were doing in the last 10 years is just failing more and more every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like, n- the crazy thing is that the technology is it's just growing so rapidly. It's moving so quickly. And, some people are not even keeping up with everything. Look, and from a standpoint of like, not enoughness, it's easy to feel like I'm not enough. Like it's just I can't do
Right,
all
right.
this, right? So
That's right.
you need some help from another individual. So first acknowledging that you need help, and then having someone that is really again someone that's a real big picture thinker that could really see from the big picture. Because a lot of times again, people just get real stuck into what they're doing, and if you're not into that big picture, you're not going to be able to architect the systems so that you can put everything else in. You really need to have some kind of architect guy to make this infrastructure and everything so that you can put everything else in there. And then everything becomes a lot easier.
Yep,
So, yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, that's your go-to-market kind of strategy,
Yeah.
and that strategy is, again, the I think the challenge people have to see it from such a, zoomed out view.
No, you're right. You're spot on, because it's about the end-to-end process that you have to build, the framework. That's why I built the framework I built, right? But then it's about the automation of that process, right? And it's about the effective automation of that process. It's funny. I wrote an article not that long ago and said in the last 20 years, we've introduced more technology into especially sales, right? And marketing, right? And what's happened? Productivity's gone down, expenses gone up. Now,
Mhm.
how many industries do we know where technology's been introduced to a process? What happens? Productivity goes up, expense goes down. So why isn't that happening in sales and in marketing? Because you're automating the wrong process
Yeah.
and you're not effectively automating process. So if I bring automation to a process that doesn't do it efficiently, what do? I do more non-productive things faster. Okay,
Yes.
now we introduce AI to that world. What do you think is going to happen?
Make it even worse.
Right. And it's exactly what is happening because companies are figuring out how to keep you from getting to them using AI.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that, again, I think that the main
Yeah.
issue there is, like, not taking this time to step back and look at, okay, how are these pieces all connected? What are we actually doing here? I mean, it's in and it's in alignment with kind of the, mm, American kind of, idea, and definitely in New York City, just that, like, go, 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 move, 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 go as fast as possible. Don't think about it. Just keep going. And I think that's what is hurting them, because it's like, okay, a new technology out. Okay, let's get that. All right, and this thing out. Okay, let's get that. And a new thing out. Okay, let's get that. All right, just keep buying shit. Just keep buying shit. Keep doing things. Keep going forward. Keep moving. Go fast. Wait a second. Why don't we go slow? And maybe we only need like three of these things that just are architected the right way. You don't need like 10 different tools. We just need to slow down and think about what each piece is that we need, and do it the right way. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Slow down and understand the process you're trying to build and execute, and then the instrumentation for how to automate that and make it effective. That's one of the reasons when I built uh, the Line sales framework, I worked with another consultant to build that framework inside of Salesforce and inside of HubSpot. Why? Because you need the automation, right? But it's the right process that's been automated, right? And so I've thought through, here's the process the winners use. And I got the confirmation because the one thing they all told me was the old ways, I don't like the CRM because it's not the way I sell. Well, when people use this framework, the winners love it because it's the way they sell. And the ones that are not yet quite up to speed on how to do that learn it because it's built in the automation. So the automation teaches them, when a prospect is here, I do this. How do I know the prospect is there? The prospect is doing these things. And when they're doing these things, that means they're curious or that means they're interested, but they're not ready to buy. Oh, when that happens, I do these things, right? So they learn it by that automation. They learn. That's why I'm not a big fan of most sales coaches. I mean, that's almost hysterical, right? I'm a sales coach. Okay, interesting. How long have you known this person? Oh, well, I just met him. Okay, great. So you're going to coach them, but you don't really know them. All right. Well, I'm their manager, so I know them. Okay, great. So let me ask you a question. How do you know whether to teach them or coach them? What do you mean? Oh, God. What do you mean? What do I mean? That's a simple question. How do you know whether to teach them or coach them? They don't have an answer. And I say, look, you know that this way. If they're executing the fundamentals and they understand the fundamentals, and it's just a question of them getting better at executing the fundamentals, they need to be coached. If they don't know the fundamentals from to begin with, and you can tell by looking at what they're doing, You have to teach them the fundamentals, right? Now, unfortunately, there are a number of managers out there that either don't know them well enough or don't know how to identify them. So one of the things I do when I go in is I say, look, I'm going to tell your managers how to identify whether the employees need coaching or training, right? And then the next thing is, okay, now we've trained them. Okay, great. And we're going to coach them. Great. What is it that reinforces the coaching or training? And they look at you like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? If you're talking to a coach and the coach is telling you, I have to keep coming back to reinforce it. No, you need infrastructure, systems, a process that pushes the people toward executing what the fundamentals are in a way that makes them better. When you have that system, when that's their job every day, amazing things happen. They develop more skill because they're doing it every day. You're reinforcing what they've learned through the systems you've implemented. And that rarely happens these days.
Yeah, and I mean, and so you're more on the sales side. I'm more on the marketing side.
Yes.
And so in the marketing world, there's the same kind of ideas. I mean, revolving around the principles and fundamentals. Most people don't know the fundamentals in marketing in the first place. And then the biggest issue with that I see is if you don't know what you're looking to do in terms of marketing, and I see this most of the time, they don't have any understanding of marketing themselves, and they just tell the marketing person, "Okay, here's $10,000. Give me some marketing. I want to see 10. I want to see 1,000 leads by Tuesday." It's like
Right.
if you don't have any understanding of marketing yourself, when you're trying to tell someone else what to do, you have no standard. There's no standard for you to go back on. So if you're not educated and understand fundamentals of marketing, how marketing works and all these things, how are you going to push back on the person? They could just take advantage of you because you don't know anything about marketing. So it's like there's got to be, like you said, it's that idea of coaching and teaching and everything. You have to know the fundamentals, first of all, then you could be coached on optimally how to do that.
Yeah, no question. That's why I like what you do because you really teach and you know when to coach, but you mostly teach. And the reason, good reason for it, you said it earlier. People don't know the fundamentals of marketing. And if you said that to a CMO, they go, what do you mean? I know the fundamentals of marketing. Yes, you understand the fundamentals of marketing from a perspective of what you were taught and how you've worked over the number of years you've been in the in the business. But AI has changed it tremendously. You do not know the fundamentals of how to execute in an AI and digital world, right? Because it's new, and guess what? Nobody's trained you. You didn't go to school for it. You don't have much of an idea how to deal with getting through to your prospects, generating pipeline, getting a hiring manager to interview you, whatever the case is, you don't know how to do it because it's new. But what you've done, which has helped me with at AcceleraRev, is you've built that framework. You understand what's required. You know what the process has to be, what the key technologies are, how to integrate them together so that they produce results. And honestly, because of AI, it's not that expensive. You know how to do it in terms of, yes, your time is obviously has a cost to it, but the tools, they're not that, they're very inexpensive because that's one of the beauties of AI is, but the cost of technology
Mhm.
way down if you know how to leverage it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this has been a great call here on the Growth Mindset podcast. I think that we covered all the main topics here we want to discuss. As a kind of a final signing off here, Mike, you're offering pretty much people to get the understanding of their sales done, get all the revenue questions answered. Um, and together we're combining forces,
Yeah.
with the marketing and sales. You've got a system that can not only bring in the leads and bring in the sales and bring all that kind of stuff, but once they're in the system, close them to a percentage which is going to be higher than what they have right now.
Absolutely. In fact, let me give you some numbers where prior to AI, this is before AI, right? When it was used, we grew revenues at established company 86% the first year, 63% the second year, 15% every year after that. Did it again at another established company, right? Similar numbers. So if you're an established company, you're going to get double digit year over year growth. You're going to get 90 plus percent forecast accuracy. You're going to get 90 plus percent close rates on your investment accounts. In a startup, it has slightly different application, right? In startups, I've been able to ramp those startups on incredibly low amounts of cash, right? Why? And ramp them within 6 to 12 months from like nothing to revenue, or take them in that same 6 to 12 months from wherever they are to significant growth ramp, right? And why? Because the architecture works. If you're a founder, it's so funny. I talk to founders all the time. Some of the mistakes. I need a lot of leads. No, you don't. You need the right leads. Well, what do you mean? Look, 85% of the market's not your buyers. Your buyers are innovators and early adopters. They live in every company you're trying to sell to. But those are the people you have to appeal to. How do you do that? Not by demoing your product, not by marketing your product, but by marketing a new way to solve an old
New
problem.
way of thinking about it. A new way of
Yes,
thinking about it. Like you say, it's about the way that you were talking about it is not how they define it. So
right.
you
That's
have
right.
to yeah, talk
Right.
about that.
Because they're defining a problem in terms of solutions they know. Nobody's running around corporate America going to their boss going, "Hey, boss, we got a big problem. There's no solution to it," right? They're defining a problem a certain way in terms of solutions they know. Your solution addresses it differently. So you talk about the different mindset, the different root causes of the problems they're experiencing. Why? Because innovators and early adopters like to solve old problems new ways. And so what happens? You get leads from innovators and early adopters. Who are your most likely buyers? Innovators and early adopters. So when you get those people and you sell them, you ramp much faster on much smaller amounts of cash, right? That's just one of many errors or a number of errors that, early stage people make, right? But that's what its execution framework does, right? It cuts those mistakes out, like they go, I got to go. I'm the founder. I've been doing all the selling and I got to get out of it to go hire a salesperson or a VP of sales. And they fail. Why? Because there's no process built. They don't know how to
Yeah.
be successful, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, what should we do? Hire fractional resources like myself. There's other ones in sales and marketing, right? We'll figure it out. We'll help you get your first few deals, and then we know what to hire to ramp you. And you're going
Yeah.
to do it on a lot less money than you're going to do by trying to go out and hire people. It's hysterical. Some of the stuff is like, I'll say to a founder, I go, I need somebody who has a big network. I go, you do? They go, yeah. Why? Are you going to give me a lot of meetings? I go, you're right. They'll get you a lot of meetings. You don't need a lot of meetings. You need a lot of sales.
Mhm.
Okay. And so you need to hire people that know how to bring disruptive technology to market. And guess what? They probably don't have a big network. Why? Because the guys at big network work for big companies who are much later stage buyers than you're trying to sell to.
Much later stage. Yeah.
Yes, well, you're going to get a lot of meetings with people who are going to tell you you have great technology. It's really nice. It's cool. And you're never going to hear from them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the honest truth. I mean, especially if you're an innovator, if you're an innovator like me, like
Yeah.
you, and if you like to work with innovators, I mean, I think that that is fun and
Yeah.
exciting. But
It is.
if you're a person that just doesn't like fun and exciting new things, probably not a good fit to work with me.
Right.
It's just not. I mean, if you just like, just like the same thing you've always done for hundreds of years, like yeah, we've always done this, we've always done it this way. I don't like changing. I don't like you doing anything different. It's like okay, keep hitting your head against the wall. If
Right.
that's what you want to do, and if you have the same problem, this repeats over and over again because you're using the same old technology, same old ideas, go ahead. No, but if you want to see a new idea, want to see a new innovation, want to see something different, that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And that's why we get energized by these things.
Oh, yeah, totally, totally, and it's great when you see it actually work, right? It's really great when people go, "Wow, this is really cool," or "This works," or, "Yeah, I'm growing my business." Because at the end of the day, it's really about helping people grow their business or advance their careers, right?
Hmm.
It's not really about much else because if you bring value to people, you get paid, but you get paid for something that has value to the people who are paying you. And that's the most rewarding part of all.
Well, thanks everyone for your long attention here. This is the Growth Mindset Podcast signing out. Mike, thank you so much for joining me here. And yeah, thanks everybody. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Dave. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.